I thought my first offer was amazing, and I thought people would pound the doors down to buy from me, understand that it might be tough. The longer you can sit in that uncomfortable, messy middle, I am incompetent and I know it, the longer you can sit there, the faster you're going to get to the next level.
Being able to slow down and appreciate the journey, not be so focused on the destination. How do you balance between those two things?
I was an overnight success that took 5 years to get there. Being careful to separate your identity from your results is super important.
Welcome to another episode of Founders Growth. My name is John Hill, aka Small Mountain. I'm the founder of Adapted Growth, which is a coaching and training company. And today we have a very cool guest on the show. We have Jennifer Bleam. I've known Jennifer for a very long time. She is the founder of MSP Sales Revolution, and she works with IT companies in the MSP space to always keep them ahead of the curve. And thank you so much for coming on the show. We have such a cool history, and I'm excited to dive into this with you. Can you talk a little bit more about how you're helping people right now stay ahead of the curve with everything that's happening and all the changes that are going on just in business in general?
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for having me on. This is going to be a ton of fun. Yes, I do work with IT companies and I help them walk into their small business clients and prospects and community and identify AI opportunities. So where are there some workflows that need to be optimized? Where are some bottlenecks? Where are companies doing business as usual because a year or two ago, that was the only way to do things manually and sometimes laboriously? And identifying those and then bringing in AI solutions to solve some of those bottlenecks.
Awesome. Very cool. And we've been friends for a super long time, right? We've been, Facebook friends, and then you did me a really huge solid a couple of years ago. You invited me to come speak, which was a really cool moment and everything. How long have you been in the founder seat?
About 5.5 years, 5.5 years, something like that.
Okay, awesome. What I would like to do is go back and look at those like early days of it and everything, right? When you think about your path, right, as a founder, what sticks out to you as kind of the places where you have had to kind of figure things out the most, the places you've gotten stuck?
Yeah, so let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. I thought my first offer was amazing, and I thought people would pound the doors down to buy from me. And I do think it was a great offer, but the positioning wasn't great. The messaging wasn't great. I maybe I underestimated how much effort would be needing to be done on the sales side, which is so ironic as a sales trainer. So that's one thing is it impossible? No. But if you're a brand new business owner and hold on to that excitement and then the newness and the dream and the vision, all of that is great, but understand that it might be tough. It might be harder than you're expecting. So that is a very good lesson to learn. Which is one of those things that seems to come back, whether I'm, let's say, learning Facebook ads or I'm learning, a new prospecting approach, or maybe I'm learning how to expand into Instagram, which is something we're considering for a few months from now. Everything has a learning curve. And I think that there is a direct correlation between how much you can lean into that uncomfortable newness. I don't know how to do this. I'm really very much aware, the conscious incompetence. I do not know this thing at all.
Yeah.
And when you're intelligent and you're well-spoken and you have a great reputation in the community, but there's this thing that you're trying to learn, it can really eat at you if you're not careful. So being careful to separate your identity from your results is super important. And then the longer you can stay in that incompetence and just sit there and learn and iterate and try. And I like to use the word hypothesis. My hypothesis is if I do this thing, then I think I will get this result. And somehow naming it a hypothesis, it takes the pressure off and it's almost a bit of gamification. So let me give you a case in point. This was probably last July-ish. We had a hypothesis that if I used an AI created headshot with every one of my text posts in social media, that our reach would go up. And indeed it did. Our reach doubled because of putting AI headshot. It's a pattern interrupt. People are scrolling. Today, Jennifer's baking bread. Tomorrow, Jennifer's outside. The day after that, she's in the rain. The day after that, she's in London. The day after that, she's sitting at a desk. The day after that, she's on a podcast. And that hypothesis happened to work, but had it not, we would have gone to the next hypothesis and the next one. So the longer you can sit in that uncomfortable, messy middle, I am incompetent and I know it, the longer you can sit there, the faster you're going to get to the next level, which is, I think it's conscious
Conscious,
competence.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, conscious competence, yeah.
Right.
The the framing of it as an experiment was such a huge lever for me, right? Because like I have a high need to kind of be right, and make sure that things go well. And it's super easy to want to build a plan in the lab, without really kind of testing it in the field and stuff like this. So now it's funny because in some of the books I read, I can see people talking about this idea, and I'm like, well, where was this, 7 years ago when I started? It was in those books. I just hadn't read them yet.
Yes.
And
Or the
so,
concept of launch before you're ready. Like if you're happy
oh,
with the software tool that you launched, then you launched too late.
yeah,
That one is something that I've just learned in the last year. I was really good at kind of rearranging all the things and whiteboarding all the things and needing to have a perfect onboarding sequence before anyone had even bought the
yep,
offer. And so I have learned this last year that just getting out there and saying, are you even interested in this? And if enough people say no, then there's a problem with my offer. That means I don't need an onboarding sequence because no one's going to buy it or not enough people will. And so then separating those results from, oh, I'm a failure because nobody wanted to buy the thing. No, retool it, remessage
hmm
it, more value, change the pricing, all of the things, iterate, just iterate.
yeah. One of the things that you talked about before was getting started, right? And we've all got big ideas, visionary beliefs, right? We all think it's going to be different for us, and that can lead to the struggle. Other than framing things as experiments, like how has Jennifer gotten better at analyzing new ideas, keeping the idea that there's a learning curve in place? Like any other tips, tricks, anything that you have found to be helpful for yourself of making sure that you're going into new things with your eyes wide open?
Part of it is remembering that you're not married to this idea. I was talking to a friend maybe 3 months ago, and we were putting together a new offer for me, and he said, "What about if you do?" I don't remember what it was, daily Q&A calls or something. And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds awful." And he's like, "Okay, what about weekly?" And I'm like, Maybe." And then he said, you could try weekly. And then if you don't like them or people aren't showing up, you could just change your offer." And I was like,
Yeah.
like, oh, of course I can because it's my business. So I'm not married to this. So that is one thing, is that you don't feel like you're married to your first idea. Your first idea might need 15 iterations before you find the thing that you land on. And even once you land on it and it's selling well and you're hitting your revenue goals, it will flex. You may need to
Yes.
add new things. That the market's going to change. Now AI is huge. In 5 years, it might be robots. Who knows?
hmm
So don't get too married to an idea. Let yourself be flexible. Um, and then I'm going to add this: everybody isn't cut out to be a business owner. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's only a bad thing if you spend 25 years trying to run a business, and now all of a sudden you're however old and you're like, oh, I never could make it work.
hmm
That's okay, but let's try to figure that out early in the journey. Many people had failed businesses before they went back to the workforce, or three failed businesses in a row. Like, it's easy um to see all the people with large businesses or successful businesses,
Oh
serial
yeah.
entrepreneurs, because that's what people post on social media. So of course
hmm
we see that. Nobody posts, "Hey, I just filed for bankruptcy. Wish me luck." Like, it's just, that's not in our, and we're not seeing that. And
Yeah.
so when we might have that happen, I have a family member who had to file for bankruptcy in the last year, and she felt very alone. And I'm like, hold on. Just statistically, look at how many people have to file bankruptcy. Look at how many people have a failed business. Again, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means this business, this timing, this offer, this niche, it just wasn't the right time. So everybody isn't right for business ownership. Draw a line in the sand. If I'm not making this amount of money personally or top line revenue for the business by this date, then I've got to make a hard decision. Am I going to try for one more quarter, two more quarters? Am I pulling the plug and going back to the workforce?
Mhm.
Either one of those is a bad solution. I think the bad solution is just living the same year over and over again and not making forward progress.
Absolutely, right, and, you know, even in there, there's a bit of an experiment. Here's the mark of success. Here's what's indicating that this experiment is working very well, right? Like the
Yes.
scientific method, right? Have a hypothesis, you know?
Yep.
I love that. One of the things we talked about was, drive, right? And you're a D type on disc, right? And so that means big goals, moving fast, hard values, let's win, and things like this, and you and I have talked at length about this, and one of the things that we were kind of talking about was being able to slow down and appreciate progress, appreciate the journey, not be so focused on the destination. How do you balance between those 2 things?
Yeah, it's not an easy balance because, as you said, my natural bent is like, let's go a million miles an hour.
Mhm.
But with age comes a little bit of wisdom, I think. And I'm now able to say, okay, I wouldn't be where I am today. One of the biggest thought leaders in our industry. When it comes to AI, I'm getting, tagged in conversations. I'm getting more collaboration opportunities that I can deal with. I just had to shrink my calendar block to be like, I cannot see you for 3 months. Like I can't do it.
Mhm.
But I was an overnight success that took 5 years to get there. And even beyond before that, right? I wouldn't be able to talk about sales. I wouldn't have the relationship that I have today if I hadn't written the book on cybersecurity selling and hit the bestseller list and did the whole podcast circuit. And so it is, it's a sequential thing. Like those all became building blocks. I didn't wake up one morning and have the reputation and have the courage to step into AI and have a great series of kind of inner circle and outer circle people that I could text and get answers from tomorrow. That doesn't happen overnight. That happens in the trenches as you're building and iterating and testing hypotheses. Some succeed, a lot don't. But you have to be doing. You have to be trying, not coasting.
Yeah.
And so being able to say, okay, none of the failures in air quotes, right? Like none of those failures were bad.
Mhm.
Um, any failure I can point to, there were learning lessons there. I think it's bad if you fail and you don't extract the gold, and then you're gonna, turn around and next quarter make the same mistake. But part of my D personality is like, because I'm going 100 miles an hour, I can't afford to make the same mistake twice because I'm going to hit that brick wall really fast.
Yeah.
So I do try to be disciplined with, okay, this didn't work. This offer didn't work. Why not? What's my hypothesis on why it didn't work? And then understanding that even let's say I wrote a book and it didn't hit the bestseller list and I was only on 2 podcasts, nobody wanted to hear from me. That's okay. I still would have gone through the process of writing the book, which a lot of people haven't done. I know you have, but many
Mhm.
listeners probably have a book idea in their head. And we were both writing books pre AI. So, like, we wrote them the old fashioned way with voice or a typewriter or
Yep.
keyboard. There was no shortcuts. Um, and so even that was a learning lesson. Like I had no idea how to do those things. And
Mhm.
uh, leaning into who, not how. Who can help me get my manuscript from 40 Word documents? I kid you not, and a Word document for every chapter, Word documents for chapters that got, thrown away,
Yeah.
Word document for cover ideas. And then I just hired someone and said, here is my mess. Here's my 40 Word documents, and paid her and she got it over the finish line. So all of those things are lessons that I can now build on. That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
how method, that's a set a goal and make it happen type of thing. So yeah, the journey, it is about the journey. It's the destination is fun too. Setting the goals and hitting the goals, of
Yeah.
course, that's a piece of it, but the journey is important.
Yeah. I was calling mine a word baby. Right, and I
Sure.
was it was weird because normally everything I write, I ship off to, Melissa, my wife, who's my editor, but this I it felt different, but I wasn't really sure exactly, like, what it was going to be, and then, finally, I let her read it, but I was calling it a word baby because, like, I didn't wanna put weird constraints on the idea, right? I didn't wanna call it a book if it wasn't meant to be a book. It coulda just been, like, a manifesto or something else like this, right? It could have been any number of things, right? So I was savvy enough by that point that, sometimes the label creates some of the constraints, right?
Mhm.
And so I was trying to be very, very open with what it could be.
Nice.
Um, yeah, now there's so many AI tools and, people that can get through the process a lot quicker and everything. And like that doesn't in my opinion diminish it, or I'm not trying to like gatekeep on writing and stuff like this,
Sure.
because it is a hard journey. It's a lot of work. It's it it's going to show you where your blind spots are, right? Which is a really helpful thing. Um,
Yes.
Changing gears a little bit. One of the things that we were kind of talking about, and this kind of shocked me, was uh, you don't do to-do lists, right? You have to don't lists, right?
Yes. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? How you manage that? What does that look like for you as a working process, and how does it help?
Yeah, so I do have a to-do list, but I always look at it through the lens of my to-don't list. So let me talk about the weird one first, kind of the to-don't list.
Sure.
This was a Benjamin Hardy um idea. I took his idea and I kind of tweaked it for my own. And it's a pivot on the 80-20 rule, like the Pareto principle, right? Like
Mhm,
20% of what I do as a founder gets me 80% of the results. So I literally listed everything that I was doing, and this was probably 2 years ago, and I
mhm,
don't know if I had a team. If I did, I had a part-time executive assistant and me. So, as you can imagine, that list was very long, and I think I ended up with 45 tasks that I did in a given month, 50,
mhm,
the number was. So, I then did the math. Okay, what 20% of 50? Okay, that means I can do 10 of these. Right? Yeah. Okay. I have 10 of these. So then I did this on an airplane because I think really well in an airplane. The hum, nobody can interrupt me. I always get a window seat. I know that's weird, but like nobody can interrupt me. So I've got my tray down. I'm like, okay, I've got 50 items. They all need to be done, but there's only 10 that I can do. What are they? And like the first 3 or 4 were really easy, and then it got hard. Um,
mhm,
and so I was like, okay, this one, I just circled them. I was just nothing special, right? Like I circled them, and then like, no, I can't do that one. I got to do like it was kind of tough work. And then I kind of sat with that 20% and said, if I spend 40 hours a week doing this, or maybe it's a short week and it's 30 hours a week or something like that. Um, would I like this life? Like, or would I be ready to kill myself? And I'm
yeah,
like, yeah, this would be a lot of fun. Like being on podcasts was one thing. Studying trends in the industry was something else. Coffee conversations. Like there were certain things that I and only I can do. I can't outsource podcast to a team member. So
mhm,
I sat with like, would I like my life? And I'm like, I would love my life. So then we put a plan in place. We just called it 80-20 Jennifer's life or something like that. And every quarter we kind of go through and we're like, here are the 3 things we've got to offload. How does Jennifer do this task? How does Jennifer think about this task? And magically, a little sarcastic there, because I am purposefully spending time on the things that move the needle, the business needle started to move.
hmm,
Now I'm not perfect. I mean, this week has been I'm onboarding a new employee. I'm getting pulled and interrupted a lot. I mean, it's seasons. I'm fighting a bit of a cold, so this has not been my best week ever. So I'm not perfect, but I'm always filtering it through the lens. Is this something I should be doing, or could I send it to a team member? I've got 2 team members, pretty small team, and then I have some people that I outsource random tasks to
sure.
on Fiverr, Upwork, stuff like that. But I make my to-do list and then I circle the things I'm going to give to a team member. And
Oh,
then I look at my to-do list and I'm like, okay, now that that is off my plate and my shoulder, I'm feeling the weight lift just a little bit. Then what I do is try to identify the one thing that is the most broken in my business, and go all in on that one thing this week.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of that's the process that I use. Um, because I'm a big systems and process geek. Every system is perfectly designed to get the result it's getting. So if I don't like the number of leads that are coming in, it's because my system is creating that number of leads. If
Oh,
I'm not getting enough sales calls, it's because my sales system is generating that number of sales calls. So I can't fix everything every week, but I can identify the worst problem, the biggest problem, solve that to the best of my ability, rinse and repeat that every week or every other week, and you'll solve 25 problems, maybe 50 problems a year, which is great.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, what is if you I love the idea of building the list first and then chopping it down from there, right? I think a lot of people get stuck when they do these kinds of ideas, whether it's like the Dan Martell stuff or the Who Not How
Sure.
stuff, however you're thinking about it. Like, I think it becomes very easy to be like, okay, this is my zone of genius, and I'm only gonna be doing these things, right? And that's a version of kind of like the inner critic coming through and stuff like this, right? So you might be creating massive blind spots because you're just thinking about what you're gonna do. I
Yes.
love I love that idea of like you still build the list and then you cull it down after you have everything out of your head. I
Yeah.
think that that's something that would trip up a lot of people because they get very kind of focused with all of these different like business methodologies and ways of thinking and stuff like this because the other thing you said was, you took something from Benjamin Hardy and needed to kind of customize it for you. Every one of these systems has got to be customized for you, right?
Yeah.
Now, I think
Agreed.
you need to run it in the pure form enough to really understand what needs to change because most people are going to come in with their own biases and their own blind spots and they're going to want to change it too much. But like even like I like EOS a lot, but I like all of these systems, but eventually you're going to have to take it off of the shelf, and realize that they didn't make that for you, and
Right.
and really try to take it off road, so that way it fits for your thing. But there was this line in martial arts that we always talked about, right? People that do like mixed martial arts versus like one style.
Right.
They're kind of cherry picking things that are easy for them to do or that they're excited to do, as opposed to like learning a whole system and then thinking intentionally about what the gaps are for you, right? And doing it enough that you're not lying to yourself about any of
Yes.
these things.
Well, because once I identified, okay, here's the 10 things that only Jennifer can do, those other 40 things still had to be getting done. The business will grind to a halt if somebody isn't tracking the metrics and then, feeding it to me. And so
Hmm.
that's the other thing that I'm saying is, okay, I would love to offload all the 80% that is necessary, but isn't urgent, isn't important, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I don't have the team where I can just offload all of it. So there's things that have to continue to happen. And so one of the things we're working on internally is I call it pushing the data to me instead of me pulling the data. So
Ooh.
um, I don't, I like to track the numbers. I do not like to try to find the spreadsheet to look at it.
Hmm.
And so part of what my team does is track specific numbers and then they send me the link to the spreadsheet. So I don't have to make the time to go look at the spreadsheet. Instead, it's in their end of shift. Hey, I updated the numbers and here's the link to the spreadsheet. Like push the data to me because I know my weakness. I get busy. I still have a long to-do list. I'm gonna be like, I'll just look at the numbers next week. And then all of a sudden next week becomes next month, becomes next
Yeah.
quarter, might become next year. And I'm like, no, we're tracking the numbers. Why is Jennifer not looking at the numbers? Oh, because she has to find the spreadsheet, which
Yep.
sounds so silly, but identifying, again, where's the bottleneck in the process? In this case, it's the human, it's me, the human in the loop. How
Hmm.
do we fix that? How about if I just have my team message me the critical numbers or message me the spreadsheet? So we're starting to go like, please push the data to me. Don't make me go pull the data.
I think some people would hear this and be like, "Oh, are we being a little picky?" But like, if we're trying to get a lot done, which is required if you're going to run a business, you have to be looking for those little things, right? Because awareness matters more than the land of should, right? I tell
Yes.
everybody like the land of should is like you should not be living there. And so if you're aware enough to know that like I love data, but I'll go spend and I'm resistant to building all of this stuff, right? It puts me in perfection mode. So just ship it to me so I can look at it,
Right.
right? One of the things that I talk about with like salespeople that are reporting to like a head of sales or if they're reporting to the founder, allow that person to function as an executive, right? Give them everything they need to make a decision. Don't put a bomb in their lap and then be mad at them that they weren't able to go, fix your problem when you didn't give them enough to like be able to be like, okay, here's some options. Should we do A or B? B.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
awareness is such an important thing and just owning it,
Like, I
Oh, I
know
love
this
that.
system is going to break because of me. So
Yes.
let's fix it. Like, let's not let it break. And
Mhm.
like to your like, I don't want to get to the end of every week and be like, oh, this week was great, except I didn't look at the dashboard again. Like,
Yep.
okay, then let's make it easy. Let's set the dashboard as my homepage. So when I open my browser, it's right there. Let's
Yeah.
we're looking at some AI tools because we use CRM Active Campaign and it doesn't have any great dashboarding, but I
Oh,
can pull the data out with Zapier and push it into Google something. Google has something
yep.
that I can build a dashboard. And I'm like, oh, I have wanted a dashboard for so long. That wasn't a compelling reason to leave Active Campaign. There may be other compelling reasons to do that. But I need it in my face because I am not going to be disciplined. I'm disciplined about other things, but I'm not going to be disciplined to go find the spreadsheet because, oh, it's 11:15 and I look at that every day. I'm just
Mhm.
not there. And I mean, I could beat myself up and be like, you should have more, more discipline and whatever. But like, okay, but I don't. Maybe I should, but I
Yeah.
don't. So let's create the system that it factors in Jennifer's weakness of not having discipline, and let's just own that, figure out a workaround, and move on. Like we
Yep.
got too many other problems to solve.
Yeah, no one's running perfect in 360 degrees. Like
No.
like it's just it's absolutely absurd, right?
Yeah.
And so man, I run into it, I mean, myself as well, right? Like uh like just yesterday we had a new guest like and I was like, cool, new guest is coming on. I'm super excited, right? And working with a consultant on this thing and also working with my wife and my wife was like, "Hey, did you put that in ClickUp?" And I'm like, I need to go put it in ClickUp, right? But like I don't have, I'm not going to be perfect. I don't try to make
Yeah.
any allowances for it. And this goes to the other thing. You need to have people who you trust enough to push back on you in those moments as opposed to like letting your ego run wild. Well, I'm the founder, you can't tell me what to do. Get people that you trust enough to like hold you accountable to the processes that help everybody,
Agreed.
Oh, the little mini tyrant running around with, no one can tell them no is gonna be problematic, right? You're gonna hit a lot of ceilings and you're gonna burn through a lot of people, it's
Yeah.
just not helpful.
No, not at all.
Um, Changing gears a little bit.
Sure.
I wanna talk about the easy button, right? Because,
Mhm.
this is a thing you talk about, a lot, and I respect that, and a lot of people are seeing AI as the easy button right now, right? How can you talk a little bit about how people chase easy buttons, and how like AI can be super helpful, but it's not a silver bullet any more than automations were a silver bullet, any more than, CRMs and cloud computing and Salesforce were silver bullets and everything. How does that how does that show up for you as a founder? How do you make sure that you're not chasing shiny things yourself?
Yeah, so let's back up and first prove that there is this concept of the easy button. So all you have to do is go to YouTube, refresh the page, and you're
Oh,
going to see like I haven't counted it, but I would bet one out of every three videos is going to be like, just use these four AI tools to
oh
say,
yeah.
to change your business. Just do this one thing in your sales process, and you'll close a bajillion dollars tomorrow, right? Like
Hmm.
just do this one thing to your marketing funnel and all of a sudden you'll be swimming in leads. And so that that's sexy and it sells, but that's not really real life.
Yeah.
Real life is it comes with complexity. And all to try to figure out how complex is your business. All you have to do is try to like whiteboard out workflows and be like, okay, well, our social media does this and it leads to the lead magnet, which does this. And how many tools does that involve and how many automations is that and are you using Zapier? Are you what things could break? So complexity is part. I'm good at making things very complex, but that's because sometimes they are like they just have to be.
Hmm.
And so we did a launch a month or so ago, and on the first day of the launch, something went wrong. One of the tools stopped working, and so my team came to me and they're like, "Oh no, all we know is someone bought and they didn't get the tag. And I'm like, okay, which tag did they not get? And they told me, and I said, oh, that's a problem with Spiffy, which is a Stripe add-on because
Mm,
Stripe can't add tags, but we got to add tags in order to onboard people. So we need a second tool to add tags. And my executive assistant was like, well, are you sure it's not coming from Jotform and Zapier? And I'm like, I'm positive because that happens after the sale. And so
yeah.
just to run that launch probably used 10 tools.
Mhm,
Um, and we have it charted out in Canva and Post-it notes in Canva and all of these things, but it is complex. So that would be my first word of warning is when you hear from a seller, from a marketing person, like just do this one thing and it's going to revolutionize your content generation, your close rate,
yep,
your insert in fill in the blank, whatever. That should raise red flags because I'm not saying everything has to be hard, but very few things are that easy. Like if there was one thing to solve everybody's sales problem, then neither John or I would have a business because everybody would just put that one thing in place, whatever it
yeah,
is, a form, a widget, the magic question, the one-page slide deck, whatever it is. So there isn't a magic easy button. And when you hear that, I it's tempting to want that. It's tempting. You can burn a lot of money. You can burn a lot of time going, oh, I have the magic prospecting kit. I
mhm,
have the magic sales process. I'm like, cool, I'll buy that from you. Oh, cool. It's only $1,000 a month. I'll buy it because I think that's going to solve my problem.
mhm,
And then all it does is adds complexity, makes it hard for me to lean into my gut, and I'm now leaning into the expert, like, "Well, I guess the expert knows more than me." Not always. And so just be cautious that easy
yeah.
button, whether it's a software, a solution, expect there to be effort.
Yes, yeah, one of the lines that I have been using a lot, right, as a reminder to myself and also with my clients, like, don't expect this to be easy, it needs to be worth it, right? Because if it's worth
Oh,
it, right, and that means, understanding your goals, understanding where you wanna go, right, then you'll show up ready to work through it as opposed to just being mad, right? And to that point that you were talking about a second ago with the tools and the launch, it would have been super easy to sit and spin your wheels trying to find that one system that could do all those things, right? And then you're taking demos and you're just opening yourself up to someone showing you a shiny thing, right? As
yes.
opposed to what is the use case? What does this need to do, right?
Yeah.
And diagram your stuff, like think it all the way through, right? This leads to that, which leads to this, and what happens if this happens, right? And it's not sexy and it's not fun, but you're going to move so much faster if you just decide to slow down a little bit and think all the way through the problem, as
Yes.
opposed to just thinking that technology is going to just make it effortless, right?
And
Oh,
maybe like add a buffer into your project. So I have a colleague who just switched to HubSpot from I don't even know what tool he was using, and it was slightly more expensive. And then some things didn't come over right, and he
hmm,
was gonna have to rebuild or try to find out what wasn't working. So then he had to hire a consultant, and so the migration ended up taking longer than he expected. He
yep,
had to hire a consultant, which was not originally in the budget, but the end result was still he got migrated to HubSpot. Now,
hmm,
he was smart enough to not get wooed by someone to be like, I can make a HubSpot migration easy. Now, maybe there are those people out there. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but
hmm.
if you are starting to hear things, just if they sound too good to be true, they probably are not.
100%. 100%. When you're thinking about the things that you're going to try, right? Because, I know that you've ran events. I know, you've been talking about ads and different things like that. How do you, how do you prioritize like what you're going to actually run with, right? Because I imagine you, like myself, and a lot of other people come on the show. When you get into this mode and you're here for a while, ideation becomes easy, right? You're networking and you're hearing from other people, right? Oh, well, this person did this and it helped. This person did this and it helped. How do you put and keep focus on the things that you're going to prioritize?
I I ask kind of so what? Let's say I do this thing at an event, I start a podcast, whatever. So many ideas, like you said. I've got my whiteboard is covered. It's pretty crazy. Um,
Same.
what happens if I do this and it works? Does it get me closer to my end goal? What
Mhm.
happens if I do this and it doesn't work? Are those going to be lessons that are helpful that I can carry into something else? Or are they kind of one-off lessons that only apply to that narrow silo? Um, so that's part of how I look at what am I focused on this quarter or for the next 6 months. The other thing, because of that 80/20, not wanting to add anything to my plate, I wrote down it's not easy, but it's worth it. We are redoing our entire prospecting system.
Hmm.
And my plan is, my hypothesis is that I can create this system over the next 90 days. I expect to put an hour a day into this prospecting system and track what works and figure out messaging so that I can bring on a salesperson.
Nice.
So that is something else that I look at is like, am I doing a thing in such a way that I can offload it, or am I
Mm,
doing this thing that I will forever have to own? I'm not trying to create a job. um, I could go out and get a job tomorrow, probably.
yeah.
I don't want a job. I like being my own boss, and so that's another lens that I look at things through. All right? The next 90 days, we are going all in on this concept of a sales power hour, where every day we work for an hour through a process that right now is in my head, and by tomorrow close of business it will be documented, at least on a
Nice.
whiteboard. And then, okay, that's what I think will work, but we need scripts and talk tracks and checklists in our CRM and all of the things operationally to fuel that process so that I get this end result, and then I can forklift it over and give it to a team member.
Nice. I like that a lot. Um, I want to talk about events for just a minute because I know you've hosted an event. I got to speak at it, right?
Sure.
And it was such a cool thing, right? And in IT MSP spaces is riddled with events,
Yes.
right? What are the biggest lessons you learn from hosting an event?
Oh, man, we could probably talk about that for 2 hours. Getting butts in seats is very difficult.
Okay.
Um, it is, however hard you think it is, quadruple that hard, and that you might be close, maybe. So you figure travel, maybe there's a ticket cost. I'm away from my business for X number of days. I'm away from my family for that same time period. Is this going to be a pitch fest, or is it really going to be valuable? Like, all of those questions are in the mind of the prospect. You have to
Mhm.
answer all of those questions in order for them to purchase the ticket, and they can't have anything else happening on the same day as your event. So
Yeah.
um that is one thing. The second learning lesson is that events are complicated. If you ever attend an event, kind of step back and be like, somebody had to figure out what color the spotlight was and how tall the stage was and where are we getting AV from? How many microphones do we need? Are we going to have lanyards? Are we going to have name tags? How do we register people? What time is this session? How do we stay on track? Is there a confidence monitor? Like, the number of questions and logistics to run an event it's obscene. It's just I can't even I don't even know how to explain it. So
Hmm.
if you and your team can't handle that level of detail and those numbers of questions, then you need to hire an event coordinator for probably 10K, 15K to answer all of those questions for you, except then they have to be able to read your mind or at
Mhm.
least capture your vision and then translate it to all of those vendors and manage all the contracts and things like that. So um, it's valuable, but it is a heavy lift.
Interesting. Okay. Uh, I l that idea, right? Because, talk about a shiny thing, right? And think that it's just gonna be easy, right? Well, I love events, so therefore everyone's gonna love events, and everyone likes me, so they're gonna come to mine, and they're not gonna
Sure.
go to their kid's graduation or their kid's soccer game or the other 17 events that are going on the same day and stuff like that. Ah, that's a nugget, right? It's gonna be harder than you think it is. It needs to be worth it, right?
Well, and
Um,
it's interesting because I had someone approach me a couple of weeks ago and say, we've got this great idea for an event in the space, and we wanted to see if you wanted to do this with us. And they had the idea, and I love the idea. I like the people, but their idea was we don't want vendors we don't want to sell sponsorships. Um, and I said, "Okay, well, how are you going to pay for everything?" And
yeah.
they're like, "Well, I mean, we're going to sell tickets." And I'm like, "But that's a problem because," and I'm like, "Listen, I'm not trying to rain on your parade. I've just done this 3 or 4 times now, for my own event. And then I planned probably 5 events, before that, not my
Mhm.
own." And I said, "The problem is you have to pay half down and half on the day of the event 60 days before the event when you haven't sold a single ticket yet, or maybe you've sold 3 or 4.
Yep.
Can you front load $50,000 in the hopes that you sell $100,000 worth of tickets?"
Mhm.
And that depends on the size and scale of the event, but that's going to be roughly what the numbers are going to look like. Maybe a little less than that. Certainly, it can go significantly up from there.
Yeah.
Some people have $1 million events, and so you have to. It's easy to go in and be like, "Oh, well, everyone will come to my event. They love me," but
Mhm.
they love their child who's graduating, or their wife
Absolutely.
who's like, "You traveled so much last year, honey. Why are you promised you weren't going to travel as much." Like, there's all of that
Mhm.
happening that you can't control. So it's tough. It's a tough gig.
And I know you ran your event for multiple years in a row. I'm curious, what was the biggest lesson that you, worked on, put a hypothesis around, ran an experiment between year 1 and 2 that had the most impact?
Between year 1 and 2, we did a great job pre-selling tickets for year 2.
Okay.
So that gave us some cash flow to be able to put the deposits down and things like that. Um, so that's probably one of the biggest lessons.
Mhm.
The other big lesson is just the logistics, especially the sponsors. The person you're talking to, Richard, and then Richard's not in the company anymore. He got a new job, so you're like
Mhm.
scrambling. Who took Richard's place? Who's my new point of contact? Like, it's just the communication. There's a lot, a lot of
Yeah.
communication. So.
Uh, uh, the I just now remembered this. I remember getting on site at the hotel, and I ran into you, and you were talking about how all of your stuff had been shipped down, and it was locked away, and you're trying to get in so that way you can have all of your signage, all of your stuff for this thing, right? And, like, no one plans for that kinda stuff,
No, there's no.
right?
So literally we shipped everything ahead of time, and we rented a storage locker. And
Mhm.
then the day before the event, the plan was go to the storage locker. We had hired a moving company. We're going to unpack the storage locker into the moving van and bring it all over to the event site and have it staged for the people to pick up their things and set up our things. And I'm trying to remember because it's been like 3 years ago, but we couldn't access the storage locker because the elevator got jammed,
Yep.
and so we couldn't take the elevator to the 2nd or 3rd floor, which is where our storage locker was. And, I'm outside scoping out the fire exit, 'cause I'm like, "Can I scale the fire exit?" And you can't make this stuff up. You could get up the fire exit, there was a fire door. There was no doorknob on the outside of the door. And I'm like, who approved this building? Like, if this building was on fire, the fire department literally cannot get in because they're not going to use the elevator, and there's no handle. How's there no handle on the door? So I just very nicely said, you've got to get a locksmith, or Jennifer might be breaking a window. They're like, "Well, just come back tomorrow." And I'm like, I can't. I have 150 people coming in tomorrow, and they need all the stuff that's up." Crazy that you can't
Yeah.
for that. So, long story short, they did get a locksmith to come in and let us in a different place. We had to manually, walk up the steps because the elevator was still broken, and like all the things. It all worked out well, but that was 3 hours of pure terror.
Yeah.
How do you have an event when you don't like all your stuff, your workbooks and your sponsors, everything was in the yeah, everything was in the storage locker. It was awful.
It was so funny because I ran into you at the in the lobby of the hotel, right? I just checked in. I'm about to go upstairs to my room and everything, and I see you, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm just so excited to be there and everything." And the thing that sticks out the most is like even in the middle of all that going on, like you you were still cracking jokes, like you were you know like you were moving, right? You had some urgency to you and everything else like
Sure.
this, but you weren't woe is me, right? You still very much had this thing of like, hey, we're gonna get through this, we're gonna figure it out and everything.
Show
Is that
must go on.
yeah, is that easy for you to do? Or is that something you have gotten better at by just carrying the stress and walking the path?
It's pretty easy for me. I've got 3 boys and a husband, and so there's always now they're older and most of them are, in college or moving out, and
Mhm,
but when they were younger, it was chaos. I mean, you're going to soccer and basketball and, you're like, "Oh, shoot, we don't have enough drivers." For a while, it's like, "Well, I'm sorry, we only have 2 drivers and 3 children, all of whom wanna go different directions." Like, we don't have we can't do that. Like, it doesn't the math doesn't math, right? So,
mhm,
um just rolling with the punches. It just kind of is my life. My husband and I laugh all the time because if we're hiring a contractor to come in and replace our roof or replace a new floor, we're like, we just want to warn you, we are the couple that something is going to go wrong with. And they're like, don't say that. And we're like, no, it happens every time.
mhm.
And they're like, what? And we're like, yeah, it just is. And they're like, why? And we're like, we don't know, but we just laugh and we make a phone call. Like, so we got our roof replaced, and 2 months later, it was raining in our living room, like, whatever, and so we're like, it just happens, like, stuff just happens and it's out of your control. So you just got what you could get all bent out of shape, but it doesn't really help.
Yeah. I have to remind myself of that because I get very bent out of shape very pretty easily. Um, Switching gears, right? I wanna ask you some of my rapid fire questions, right? When someone is going out and they're gonna go out as a, maybe a freelancer solopreneur, or they have visions of being a founder and growing something bigger. When it comes to AI specifically, what do they need to be thinking about on day one?
I think it's easier for someone who doesn't have any processes to put AI in place early because it's harder
Oh.
to retool processes and flex AI in. But my caution would be you don't want to automate or make something more efficient if it's broken.
Mm,
And it sounds so silly, but make sure you have a functional process first before you make it automated. Otherwise, you're just going to spend a lot of money automating things that are broken. That doesn't do any good. So, um, whether you're creating a flow chart on a whiteboard or Canva or Miro or post-it notes or whatever,
mhm.
have an idea what that process looks like manually so that that becomes your specs. Like, it has to be able to do these things, and now you're evaluating the AI solutions from, can it do the things I want it to do? So have an idea what your process is first.
I love that idea that, it's easier to start from scratch than it is to try to come in and meaningfully insert, in certain areas and everything. I never really thought about it like that, right? But, we can, blind spots, right? I'm really good at this, and maybe you're not really good at it, but, you just get personal value out of doing those things.
Sure.
Um, Zooming in just a little bit to that question, if we could, because a lot of your focus is on sales and growth and everything, specifically in the IT space. How can someone on their first day in their first week use AI to help, build some momentum, get some things going, build some pipeline? What is something you would recommend them doing day one, month one?
Okay, so there's a couple. Number one is learn to use AI as a thought partner. Be cautious because AI is trained to tell you you're brilliant. So you have to tune it
Yeah.
to be like, I don't need you to tell me every one of my ideas is good. Every one of my ideas is not good. So you have to be careful. But especially if you process verbally, use AI to process verbally.
Mhm.
I almost used up my maximum number of voice credits on ChatGPT last month, and I'm on the Teams program, the Teams plan, so I have a pretty good amount of data there, because I talk to ChatGPT a lot.
Hmm.
Claude has the same thing. So if you process verbally, use AI to just talk things out, and sometimes you'll find the solution. You don't need AI; you just need it to listen to you. So that's one thing. And the other thing, and this is something that I build for people, this is not a pitch, but if you're savvy, build an AI board of directors. Like just figure who, if you could talk to any 3 or 4 brilliant people who have existed in any amount of time ever, because they don't still have to be alive, there just has to be a body of work, and how do they think about things and how do they reason, build an AI board of directors, because then you can go to that board and train the board on your current offers and your current bottlenecks and your vision and your goals. And like Sam Altman, pretend Sam Altman is on my board, and he's harsh. That's part of why I picked him. Because to your point, John, um, founders don't always have a lot of people to tell them that they're getting off track or they're
Yeah.
losing the thread, or don't do that. That's really dumb. That's not going to move the needle at all. Like I need people and AI people to tell me that. So building an AI board of directors is a great lever, a great lever to pull.
I love that. I think it's, because I talk about this with like mentorship, right? Like don't I don't care who the person is. They don't have all the answers for everything that you're going through, right? Because we're all a little bit different. And that's where it's like, you need to have multiple mentors, right? And so that way you can put people in the right lanes, listen to them, and then you're not taking bad advice from people and you're not second guessing advice that kind of doesn't make sense, which makes you kind of water down your trust worth or your trust in that person who's got really great advice in other lanes. Don't put people in bad spots so that way they can disappoint you, right?
Yes.
I love that idea. When, everyone has advice, so social media makes it really easy to kind of just, you know, put a lot of advice out there. What is a piece of advice that you can now, understand and respect, but you had to kind of learn it the hard way? You had to kind of run into the brick wall yourself.
Yeah, so there's this concept called profit first. Mike Michalowicz wrote this book, and it is simply, instead of saying income minus expenses equals profit, which is our typical accounting way of looking at things, we do profit first. So it's like income, we store away the profit, and now we only have X amount to spend. Uh,
Hmm.
and what happens, and I've just been doing this for 6 months or so because I had to learn this the hard way, because you hear advice and you're like, I'm too small, I don't have make enough money. Yeah, but all the things, right? Um, and it is amazing because one of the tenets is that once a quarter, you take half of that profit and you pay yourself a bonus. And it's all math, and AI can help you do it. But it's a very different. It puts guardrails on your expenses, first of all, which is always good because there's always something to spend money on.
Oh yeah.
So that, having that cap, like I can't spend more than X. And so that thing, that Facebook ad that I saw, or that tool, or the AI solution, or the whatever, I can't buy that until I increase my revenue. So now we've got like that external pressure to grow revenue, which is good.
Hmm.
Then once a quarter, to be able to take an owner's bonus because of how much your business grew is so empowering. Like I talk
Yeah.
to many business owners that just don't pay themselves, and it's demoralizing. And so it's the same. We just use algebra to flip the equation around, but there's something powerful about it. Simple. And to your point of taking and tweaking it, like the profit first would say have, 6 different bank accounts. I don't. I
Hmm.
one extra bank account, and profit goes in there, and the owners, I take all the things that are supposed to go into 6 different bank accounts and I put it into one, and then my accountant does a general ledger or balance sheet or
Yeah.
something to track it all. But the concept is 100% valid.
And it's a super solid book. I recommend it to like lots of people because just the concept of when your plate is huge, you're probably going to overserve yourself, right? And like as soon as I read that, I was like, "Ooh, I have some room to improve on this thing," right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because, growing up as like an 80s kid, right? Clean your plate club and then being in the military and like you don't know when you're going to eat again, so you make the most of it now.
sure,
Like, just that concept of make the plate smaller, right? Because if you're running around with all of your money in one account or whatever, probably not being all that discerning with your spending, right?
sure.
And, it just leads to, concern and frustration and anxiety, absolutely. So phenomenal book. Um, so you've been in the space for a while. You've been walking your path for a while. Independent of what kind of business type, right? What is your advice for someone who's going to go off and start today?
Have more conversations.
Mm,
Have more conversations. Like, I've got this crazy idea. Can I run it past you? It's not necessarily a sales conversation. It might become a sales conversation, but imagine if you had 20 or 30 or 40 of those types of conversations a month.
mm,
Gold. And we can, do it on Zoom, and we can record it, and then we can feed the transcripts into AI, and AI can pattern match for us, like all the things, right? But you're going to build your network. You're going to get great feedback. And it doesn't even have to be around the offer that you're creating. It could be, what are you hearing in the industry? What are people concerned about? Is this a bleeding neck problem that I'm trying to solve? Or is this something that people are going to be like, oh, that's good. That's kind of a nice to have. That's probably not a great model, because people pay for bleeding neck problems. And if it's just a nice to have, then when they start to do profit first, they're going to be like, well, the first thing to go is that nice to have thing that is too.
mhm.
But have those conversations. You're also building the rejection muscle where
Oh,
you're
yeah.
everyone's not going to agree to have a conversation with you. That's okay, because when you're in the sales seat as the founder, everyone's not going to agree to buy from you. Everyone's not going to want your lead magnet. Everyone's
Mhm.
going to say yes. So just have more conversations, and that conversational the ability to have conversations with people will then dovetail into your sales calls as well. You'll be able to talk to them.
100%. Like, I it's always my first question, right, "John, I wanna go launch this business." "Okay, cool, I'm excited for you. How many people have you talked to about it?" "Oh, well,
Yeah,
none. I just know it's gonna work." "Okay, how do you know?" One of the things that is super important is that, like, to your point, it doesn't have to be polished. As a matter of fact, it's better when it's not, right? I just have this crazy idea. "Oh, I would never pay for that unless it had this," right? And then when you can capture those stories, right, and use those stories and you're, "Hey, I was talking with Jennifer. Here's what she said, and I'm curious, is that relevant to you?" We're not even having to sell anything, right?
right.
Like people who come and they're trying to hire people like you and me, right? They've missed this boat entirely, right? And they're still kind of running around thinking that, well, everyone should just be buying. Just shut up and buy. Well, I need sales training. Okay, well, probably, right? Maybe, but like maybe you should have started with like a better understanding of what people would be excited to buy, right?
Yes.
And then you're not trying to Grant Cardone and shove it down everyone's, throat and everything else like this.
Yeah.
Huge nugget. Jennifer, I want to thank you so much for coming on here. I think there's a bunch of stuff in here that's going to help other founders and everything. If people want to keep up with you and kind of learn more about what you're doing, or maybe they want to come talk to you about an AI board of directors, where's the best place for them to come hang out with you and keep up to date?
Yeah. So I'm active on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest. And then if you go out to my website, mspsalesrevolution.com, I'm, of course, reachable on there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. I know you're a little under the weather, but really appreciate you coming on anyway. As a cool conversation, and I think it's really going to help some people.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me on.
Cheers. Have a great day.
You too.